Imagine standing at the threshold of a brand new year, not simply flipping a calendar page, but stepping into a season filled with unknown decisions, unseen challenges, and unspoken opportunities. Every new year carries its own mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. And for 2026, perhaps more than ever, people are searching for direction, clarity, and something solid to build their lives on. But what if the path to a truly fulfilling year isn't hidden in new trends, modern philosophies, or the next wave of self-help strategies? What if the answers you are looking for were spoken thousands of years ago, preserved in short, powerful sentences designed to guide people through every season of life then and now? That is the heart of the book of Proverbs. For generations, Proverbs has served as a compass, steady, concise, and piercingly relevant. It speaks into everyday matters: how to work with integrity, how to speak wisely, how to treat others, how to manage emotions, how to make decisions, and even how to guard your heart in times of uncertainty. These timeless statements were not written for scholars or philosophers. They were written for ordinary people navigating ordinary life, the same kind of life we are all living right now. And as we begin this journey into 25 timeless proverbs for a fulfilling 2026, our purpose is not to treat these proverbs as ancient relics, but as living tools, practical insights that you can carry into your relationships, your work, your personal growth, and your daily struggles. Whether you are stepping into this year with excitement, fear, confusion, or hope, there is wisdom waiting for you, wisdom that cuts through noise, steadies your mind, and teaches you how to walk with intention. Before we explore the first set of proverbs, we begin with a simple but powerful question. What makes a proverb timeless? The answer is found in its structure. A proverb takes a complex truth, something that would normally require pages of explanation, and compresses it into a single memorable sentence. These short statements are designed to stick, to guide, to correct, and to illuminate. And because they address the core of human behavior: desire, discipline, pride, fear, choice, consequences, they remain relevant no matter how much the world changes. Technology evolves, cultures shift, generations come and go, but the heart of humanity, its struggles, its temptations, its hopes remains remarkably consistent. And this is why Proverbs still speaks with such clarity. It addresses what is unchanging in us. As we step into part 1, our goal is to lay the foundation for the entire series. Think of this as the doorway into a deeper, richer, wiser 2026. A year shaped not by accident, but by intentional choices rooted in timeless truth. So let us begin with the first layer of wisdom, the invitation to live differently. The book of Proverbs opens by stating its purpose: to give wisdom, discipline, understanding, and insight to all who seek it. This alone sets the tone. Wisdom is not forced, not imposed, not demanded. It is offered, it invites, it calls, and only those who choose to listen will receive its benefits. This is the first truth to carry into 2026. Your year will be shaped by what you choose to listen to. Every single day, you are surrounded by voices, news feeds, opinions, trends, pressures, fears. These voices do more than entertain. They form the way you think, and the way you think forms the way you live. Proverbs teaches that wisdom begins with choosing the right voice, choosing the voice that leads toward clarity, peace, and discernment, choosing the voice that understands human nature far better than any modern trend. That voice, God's wisdom, is what will anchor you when life becomes overwhelming, confusing, or emotionally draining. But wisdom does not simply inform you. It transforms you. It shapes the way you approach decisions. It influences the way you view success. It refines the way you speak to others. It strengthens the way you respond to conflict. It protects you from destructive paths. It keeps your heart steady when circumstances shake. Wisdom is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And 2026 will be a year defined by whether you walk with wisdom or without it. That is why we will explore 25 proverbs, each one chosen for its direct relevance to the challenges people everywhere are facing right now: stress, distracted living, emotional overload, relationship tension, decision fatigue, fear of the future, loss of purpose. Each proverb carries a key that unlocks a better way of living. But before we dive into the first proverb, we need to answer one more question. How do you apply a proverb to your daily life? A proverb works like a lens. It sharpens your perspective. It reveals a truth that might otherwise be hidden beneath layers of emotion or confusion. When applied consistently, a proverb becomes a filter through which you interpret decisions, evaluate choices, and respond to circumstances. For example, if a proverb teaches patience in anger, you begin to recognize the early signs of rising frustration. You pause, you reflect, you respond differently. The proverb becomes a tool, not a slogan. If a proverb teaches the importance of guarding your speech, you begin to notice how your words influence your relationships. You become more intentional, more thoughtful, more aware. The proverb is no longer something you read, it becomes something you practice. This daily integration is what transforms your life, one decision at a time. As we begin this 25 proverb journey, approach it with openness. Don't rush, don't skim. Let each insight sit with you, let it challenge you, encourage you, and redirect you. Wisdom reshapes us when we are willing to slow down long enough to receive it. Now let's talk about the mindset needed to walk through 2026 wisely. We live in a world where many people equate intelligence with wisdom, but the two are not the same. Intelligence is the ability to process information. Wisdom is the ability to apply truth. Intelligence fills the mind. Wisdom shapes the life. Intelligence can make you efficient. Wisdom makes you effective. Intelligence can win arguments. Wisdom builds relationships. Intelligence can earn money. Wisdom teaches you how to use it well. This year, aim not only to learn more, but to live wiser. Wisdom also requires humility, the willingness to admit you do not know everything, and to be teachable even when it is uncomfortable. Many people miss out on transformation because they assume they already understand enough. But Proverbs repeatedly emphasizes that the wise are those who are willing to listen, willing to be corrected, willing to grow. If you enter 2026 with humility, you will leave 2026 with strength. Wisdom begins with willingness, and willingness begins with humility. So as we prepare to step into the first set of Proverbs, ask yourself, am I willing to change? Am I willing to be taught? Am I willing to let ancient truth guide my modern life? If your answer is yes, even a hesitant yes, then you are ready for what comes next. In the following sections, we will explore proverbs that speak to discipline, discernment, emotional balance, relational health, integrity, patience, purpose, and everyday decision-making. Each one offers a pathway toward a more fulfilling year. Each one reveals a piece of the life God intends for you to walk in, not a life free of challenges, but a life filled with wisdom to navigate them. This is the beginning of your journey into a more grounded, intentional, and spiritually aligned 2026. As we step deeper into this journey of wisdom, we begin with the first 5 Proverbs, 5 foundational truths that anchor everything else in the book of Proverbs. Think of these not merely as statements, but as stepping stones. Each one places your foot on solid ancient ground as you walk into the unpredictable landscape of a new year. These first 5 Proverbs address the core of human behavior: humility, guidance, discipline, patience, and the power of your inner life. Together they create a framework for living wisely, making better decisions, and approaching 2026 with intentional clarity. Let us begin. Proverb 1. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Proverbs 9:10. This is not just the most famous proverb, is the foundation of the entire book. And to truly understand its significance, we must understand what fear of the Lord means. It does not mean terror. It does not mean dread. It is not fear in the way modern ears often interpret it. The fear of the Lord refers to reverence, acknowledging God's authority, His moral order, His wisdom, and His rightful place as the one who defines truth. It is the mindset that says, I do not know everything. I need guidance bigger than myself. In a world where people rely heavily on their own instincts, feelings, and opinions, this proverb invites you to anchor your life in something higher. It teaches that real wisdom doesn't begin with education, intelligence, or experience, though all of these are valuable. Real wisdom begins with posture. A posture of humility. A posture of teachability. A posture that recognizes you are not the center of the universe but part of a larger design. Entering 2026 with this mindset instantly separates you from the chaos of modern thinking. It protects you from arrogance, it shields you from foolish decisions. It grounds you in truth, and it prepares your heart to learn from everything that follows. Proverb 2. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3-5. This proverb speaks directly to one of the most common struggles people face today: the weight of uncertainty, the desire to control, the fear of making the wrong decision. We live in an age of overwhelming information but decreasing clarity. People research endlessly, worry excessively, and second-guess themselves repeatedly. Yet the more they try to lean on their own understanding, the more anxious and exhausted they become. This proverb offers a radical shift. Trust is more powerful than certainty. To trust with all your heart does not mean avoiding responsibility or ignoring wisdom. It means acknowledging that your understanding is limited. You see fragments. God sees the whole. You see the moment. He sees the future. You interpret based on emotion. He operates based on truth. This proverb invites you to release the illusion of control, to stop spiraling in your own thoughts, to stop relying solely on your limited perspective when approaching challenges, decisions, relationships, or dreams in 2026. When you trust, you find peace. When you lean on your own understanding, you find pressure. This year, choose peace. Proverb 3. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3-6. This proverb continues where the previous one left off. It teaches that wisdom is not a one-time action, it is a lifestyle. In all your ways means in every domain of life. Your work, your relationships, your finances, your plans, your habits, your private thoughts, your decisions. To acknowledge God is to bring Him into the conversation of your daily life. It is to pause and consider what aligns with His wisdom before moving forward. It is to seek His direction rather than acting on impulse. It is to live with awareness that every decision carries spiritual weight. This proverb carries a promise, not just a principle. If you acknowledge Him, He will direct your path. Not might, not could, not possibly. He will. This means clarity is not something you must chase. It is something God provides to those who walk aligned with Him. Straight paths do not mean easy paths, but they do mean guided paths, without unnecessary detours, avoidable mistakes, or preventable regrets. If you want 2026 to be more aligned, more focused, and more purposeful, begin by acknowledging God in every part of your journey. You will be surprised by how much clarity follows. Proverb 4. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. Proverbs 15:1. This proverb touches an area of life that affects everyone: communication. Words have power. Words build or destroy. Words heal or wound. Words calm or escalate. In 2026, you will face conversations that test your patience, relationships that require emotional maturity, and situations where your response may determine the outcome. This proverb offers a simple but transformative truth. The tone of your words shapes the direction of your relationships. A gentle answer is not weak. It is controlled. It is intentional. It is wise. It de-escalates tension, opens doors for understanding, and creates space for reconciliation. Harsh words, however, inflame the situation. They turn disagreements into conflict. They turn misunderstandings into wounds. They turn temporary frustration into long-term damage. This proverb calls you to communication rooted in wisdom, not emotion, to respond rather than react, to choose peace over pride. If practiced consistently, this single truth can transform your relationships in 2026, your family, your friendships, your workplace, even your inner dialogue. Gentleness is strength under control. Make it part of your year. Proverb 5. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. This is one of the most profound proverbs in all of Scripture because it reveals the source of everything that shapes your life: the heart. Heart in biblical language includes your thoughts, desires, attitudes, and motivations. It is the core of who you are, and this proverb teaches that your life moves in the direction of your inner world. Your outer actions reflect your inner condition. If your heart is anxious, your decisions become fear-driven. If your heart is bitter, your relationships become strained. If your heart is distracted, your priorities become scattered. If your heart is unguarded, your emotions become unstable. To guard your heart is not to shut people out. It is to protect what influences you. It is to be careful about what you consume, what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, who you trust, and what you allow to take root inside you. Everything you do flows from your heart, so if you want 2026 to change, your heart must be guarded, not just occasionally but consistently. Guarding your heart means being mindful, being selective, being intentional. It means refusing to let negativity dominate your inner world. It means choosing what strengthens your spirit, rather than what drains it. This proverb is an essential part of a fulfilling life because it teaches you to master the source, not just the symptoms. When we move from the poetic lines of Scripture to the buzzing, high-pressure atmosphere of modern life, the gap may seem too wide to cross. Many people read Proverbs, agree with their ideas, and then continue navigating daily decisions exactly as before. The intention here is not merely to appreciate ancient wisdom but to operationalize it. In this section, we take several select proverbs and walk through how they function in real-world scenarios: your workplace, relationships, digital habits, emotions, and priorities. As you read, imagine these teachings not as museum artifacts but as working tools, practical, durable, and as relevant as the smartphone in your hand. Let us begin with one of the most foundational reminders. Proverb 10. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. At first glance, this proverb seems simple, almost too simple to address the complexity of modern conflict. But consider the environments we inhabit: online comment wars, workplace tension, family misunderstandings amplified by stress, misinterpretations in text messages, and the general fatigue that makes people react rather than respond. A soft answer does not mean weakness. It means strategy. It means regulating your own emotional temperature so that you do not escalate an already volatile moment. Picture a workplace meeting where a colleague raises their voice, frustrated and dismissive of your idea. The natural human response is to defend yourself with equal intensity. But as countless organizational studies confirm, emotional mirroring only deepens the conflict. A soft answer, steady, measured, and calm, interrupts the cycle. It reframes the entire atmosphere. It signals that you will not participate in emotional escalation, and in many cases it diffuses the situation before it evolves into something regrettable. Now consider the what if. What if you match harshness with harshness? The outcome is predictable: damage to relationships, loss of trust, emotional exhaustion, and often the undermining of your own goals. When you embrace a soft answer, you choose long-term outcomes over short-term validation. Actionable insight before responding to a heated comment, spoken or typed. Pause for 5 seconds. This micro delay shifts your brain from reaction to decision, enabling you to choose clarity over chaos. For 2026, make this a discipline. Respond from composure, not impulse. Proverb 11. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. Proverbs 16:3. This is not a promise of automatic success. It is a reminder about alignment. In modern terms, this proverb is about intention before execution. Many people begin projects, careers, or major decisions driven by stress, comparison, or cultural pressure. The result is predictable: burnout, confusion, or inconsistent progress. To commit in the original context implies releasing ownership, placing your motives, direction, and outcomes under a higher authority. Practically, this means you are not driven by ego or anxiety, but by clarity of purpose. When your internal posture is aligned with your spiritual convictions, your plans gain stability, decisions become sharper, priorities become cleaner, your time and energy no longer scatter in 10 directions. A real-world scenario. Imagine entering 2026 determined to build a new business, enhance your career, or pursue a creative project. Without grounding, every setback feels catastrophic. But with the mindset of commitment, setbacks become adjustments rather than failures. The plan becomes a process rather than a performance. You have a compass, not just a to-do list. What if you do not commit? Expect overthinking, second-guessing, and cycles of starting and stopping. Commitment plants your plan in solid soil. Without it, you are simply scattering seeds on shifting ground. Actionable insight. Start each week with a 3-minute commitment ritual. Speak your goals aloud. Surrender the outcomes and ask for clarity and alignment. Over 12 months, this simple practice recalibrates decision-making at every level. Proverb 12. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. This proverb has profound emotional intelligence built into it. In today's world, your heart, your inner world, is under constant pressure. News cycles designed to provoke fear. Social media engineered for comparison. Productivity culture pushing you toward burnout. And environments that reward speed over depth. Guarding your heart is not about building emotional walls. It is about managing inputs. It is about choosing what you allow to influence your beliefs, mood, and motivations. Consider a modern example. You scroll social media the moment you wake up. Suddenly you are comparing your life to others, absorbing negativity, and entering the day already emotionally depleted. Or think about conversations with chronically cynical people. After spending time with them, you feel deflated and discouraged. This happens because your heart is porous. What enters eventually shapes what flows out. What if you do not guard your heart? Expect inconsistent emotions, reactive decision-making, and persistent internal turbulence. Unfiltered exposure gradually alters your outlook, even without your awareness. Actionable insight. Set daily boundaries. No emotionally draining content within the first hour of waking. Regularly audit relationships or influences that consistently leave you anxious, angry, or discouraged. This is not selfishness. It is stewardship. Proverb 13. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. Although ancient, the insight is timeless. Ego blinds. Pride creates illusions of invulnerability. A haughty spirit prevents correction, feedback, and growth. In modern settings, pride shows up as the refusal to admit mistakes, resistance to learning, the need to be right at all costs, or the subtle arrogance of believing the rules do not apply to you. Imagine a manager in a workplace who refuses to acknowledge blind spots because they equate feedback with weakness. Over time, their team becomes disengaged, innovation slows, and morale deteriorates. The fall does not always look dramatic. It often looks like stagnation. On a personal level, pride manifests in relationships when someone refuses to apologize first or insists that their viewpoint is always superior. The real cost is emotional distance, tension, and fragmentation. What if this proverb is ignored? You may experience repeated patterns of conflict, unlearned lessons, or opportunities lost because humility was absent. Actionable insight. Adopt a simple habit for 2026 when receiving feedback solicited or not. Respond first with "thank you for pointing that out." Even if you later disagree, this posture disarms pride and cultivates growth. Proverb 14. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs 13:20. This proverb speaks to the power of proximity. The people you consistently interact with shape your judgment, resilience, habits, and trajectory. In 2026, networking is common language, but spiritual proximity is often overlooked. Wisdom is transferable. So is foolishness. Think about a young professional surrounded by friends whose priorities revolve around distraction rather than growth. Over time, their energy, discipline, and outlook begin mirroring the group, not intentionally, simply through atmospheric influence. Or consider someone struggling with financial discipline who constantly spends time with impulsive spenders. Habits spread socially. On the positive side, walking with the wise elevates your thinking. Conversations become richer. Dreams become clearer. Decisions become more discerning. The right company accelerates growth. The wrong company sabotages it. What if you ignore this? Expect slow erosion of judgment, compromised boundaries, and recurring life patterns that stem not from your own choices but from those you allowed to close. Actionable insight. In 2026, intentionally build a wisdom circle, 3 to 5 people whose character, habits, and priorities align with the life you aspire to build. Make proximity a discipline, not an accident. As we move into the final section of this journey through 25 timeless proverbs, the focus shifts from foundational wisdom to sustaining wisdom, the kind that supports long-term growth, resilience, and inner stability. These last 5 proverbs are not about quick corrections or immediate insights. Instead, they are about building a framework for the kind of year you can stand on. They address how you treat others, how you handle pressure, how you manage your own heart, and how you anchor your future. Each one pushes you beyond behavior and into identity. They invite you to consider not just what you are doing in 2026, but who you are becoming. And in a world that constantly reshapes expectations, these proverbs remain immovable guides, reminding you that character is not formed by accident. It is sculpted through intention. The first of these closing proverbs is simple, short, and incredibly sharp. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. For most people, the hardest moment to make a wise choice is right in the center of conflict. When you feel attacked, misunderstood, ignored, or provoked, instinct pulls you toward self-defense. You raise your tone, you increase your volume, you sharpen your words, and yet this proverb declares the opposite. Strength is not found in force, but in restraint. In ancient Hebrew usage, the word soft does not mean weak, it means measured, intentional, carefully chosen. It is the word used to describe a controlled response instead of a reactive one. When your emotions rush forward, this proverb asks you to pause long enough to choose words that de-escalate rather than inflame. The implications for modern life are enormous. A single soft answer can diffuse an argument with a spouse, stop a disagreement at work from exploding, or rescue a friendship from unnecessary damage. And when you ignore this wisdom, the consequences are painfully predictable. One harsh phrase can undo months of trust. For 2026, take this proverb as a practical discipline. In moments of tension, wait 3 seconds before responding. Those 3 seconds can transform the entire outcome. The next proverb widens the lens from conflict to community. Iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. This principle stood at the heart of ancient craftsmanship. Iron tools did not sharpen themselves. They needed contact, strong, precise, sometimes abrasive. When the writer chose this image, he was highlighting a truth that is still unavoidable today. You become sharper, stronger, wiser, and more mature through the right relationships. The quality of the people around you shapes the quality of your character. If you surround yourself with individuals who pull you downward, you will slowly lose clarity. If you surround yourself with people who are intentional, principled, and spiritually grounded, you will rise with them. In the modern world, this sharpening often happens through honest conversations, constructive feedback, accountability, or simply being in the presence of someone who pushes you to grow. But the opposite is equally true: neglecting. This proverb leads to stagnation. You drift, you lose purpose, you settle into comfort that eventually becomes complacency. A powerful way to apply this in 2026 is by identifying one person who sharpens you and choosing to engage with them more consistently. Growth does not happen in isolation. It happens in connection. From community, the focus moves inward again with a deeply personal proverb above all else. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. In its original context, the heart referred not just to emotions but to the entire inner life, your thoughts, desires, motives, beliefs, and moral center. The proverb warns that if the heart becomes neglected, everything else follows the same direction. Your decisions, your habits, your priorities, your relationships, they all reflect whatever is happening inside you. This is not a call to self-protection but to self-awareness. Guarding your heart means monitoring what you allow to influence you, the voices you listen to, the content you consume, the people you trust, the thoughts you entertain, the expectations you absorb, and the fears you feed. If your heart is weighed down by cynicism, everything will look darker. If your heart is driven by comparison, nothing will ever feel enough. But if your heart is nurtured with truth, clarity, and gratitude, your entire life will shift. In practical terms, this proverb invites you in 2026 to intentionally create space for reflection. Even 5 minutes of quiet in the morning can become a guardrail that shapes your inner world before the world shapes you. The fourth proverb in this final sequence brings a broader, almost agricultural imagery. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. In ancient usage, commit literally meant to roll something onto someone else, to shift the weight and responsibility from your shoulders to God's. This proverb is not promising that every idea you have will unfold without obstacles. It is promising that when your motives, your direction, and your actions are placed under God's guidance, the path becomes aligned with purpose rather than driven by anxiety. Success, in this context, is not defined by external results but by alignment with divine wisdom. Many people enter a new year with ambitious goals, but they carry them alone, pressured, exhausted, and overwhelmed. This proverb calls for a different posture. Before striving, submit. Before pushing, pray. Before planning, surrender. When you ignore this principle, you end up building a life that looks productive but feels empty. When you honor it, you experience clarity and a sense of steady direction even when circumstances shift. A practical application for 2026 is to dedicate the first 5 minutes of every workday to releasing your plans to God, asking for wisdom, and trusting Him to shape the outcome. The final proverb that closes this entire journey is both grounding and uplifting. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. At face value, the word fear can seem misplaced, but in Hebrew it meant reverence, awe, and a deep recognition of God's authority and holiness. It is the posture that says, God is God, and I am not. It is the awareness that human wisdom, no matter how intelligent, strategic, or experienced always has limits, but God's wisdom does not. Beginning with this reverence is not just a spiritual principle, it becomes a stabilizing force for everyday life. When this AW fills your perspective, decisions become clearer because you are not driven solely by fear of failure or desire for approval. Relationships become healthier because pride is softened. Priorities become aligned because you're guided by eternal truths rather than temporary pressures. Without this grounding reverence, wisdom becomes situational and subjective, shifting with emotions or cultural trends. With it, wisdom becomes anchored. If there is one principle to carry into 2026, it is this: start every major decision by acknowledging God's place in it. That single posture can reshape your entire year. Together, these final 5 proverbs form a complete framework for sustained growth. They teach you how to handle conflict with grace, how to choose relationships that sharpen you, how to protect the core of your inner world, how to release control of your plans, and how to root the entire year in reverence. Applied consistently, not perfectly, but intentionally, they shape a year marked by clarity, depth, and spiritual maturity. They do not remove challenges, but they transform how you move through them. They do not guarantee easy days, but they guarantee grounded days. And in a year as full of unknowns as 2026, that kind of groundedness becomes one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. As we come to the final chapter of this journey through 25 timeless proverbs, the message shifts from exploration to embodiment. Wisdom is never meant to remain an idea. It is not a collection of inspirational lines, nor a set of ancient phrases preserved for admiration. Wisdom is meant to be lived. It must make its way into your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, your choices, and your relationships. And that transition from hearing to living is where true transformation begins. This closing section is not simply a summary but a call, an invitation to carry these truths into your everyday life in 2026, not as occasional encouragements but as a personal operating system. You have walked through proverbs that teach you how to speak, how to decide, how to observe, how to guard your heart, how to treat others, and how to navigate uncertainty. Now the question becomes, what happens when you engage with this wisdom consistently, intentionally, and wholeheartedly? Imagine a person who actually lives out these proverbs day after day, not perfectly but consistently. Over time, their life begins to look different in ways that outsiders may not immediately understand. There is a quiet steadiness in them. Challenges come, but they do not crumble. Opportunities appear, and they respond with clarity instead of confusion. Conflicts arise, and they answer softly instead of harshly. The year unfolds, but they are not tossed around by every wave of emotion, opinion, or pressure. That is the power of wisdom. It shapes you from the inside out, building resilience where there once was fragility, patience where there once was impulse, and discernment where there once was indecision. You begin to make choices that align with truth instead of fear. You begin to see situations through a clearer lens. And slowly, almost quietly, your life takes a different trajectory. Consider a simple example. Someone begins the year overwhelmed by decisions, career choices, financial pressures, relational tensions. They feel pulled in multiple directions, unsure of what truly matters. But instead of allowing confusion to dominate, they start applying one proverb a week. One week they focus on guarding their heart. Another week they focus on gentle responses. Another week they reflect on trusting the Lord with their plans. Slowly the fog starts to clear. They no longer react impulsively. They pause long enough to seek perspective. They stop carrying burdens alone. They begin to evaluate opportunities not by how urgent they feel but by whether they align with wisdom. By the midpoint of the year, their life hasn't suddenly become perfect but it has become anchored. They make fewer mistakes. They repair relationships more quickly. They navigate emotions with more maturity. This is not fantasy. This is the natural result of sustained engagement with wisdom. Or think of someone who enters 2026 carrying unresolved anger, disappointment, or frustration. Relationships feel tense, conversations feel heavy, everything seems personal. But as they internalize the proverb about a soft answer, something begins to shift. They notice their reactions. They choose silence over escalation, gentleness over pride. And suddenly arguments that would have lasted hours evaporate in minutes. Misunderstandings resolve themselves before they become conflicts. Trust, long cracked, slowly repairs itself. When wisdom is practiced, relationships change not overnight, but undeniably. And as relationships change, the tone of daily life changes with them. Then imagine the person who begins the year with fierce fear of failure. Fear of missing out, fear of making the wrong decision, fear of the unknown. These fears quietly direct their steps, shaping choices more than they realize. But when they begin living with the reverence described in the fear of the Lord, their internal compass resets. They stop interpreting life through the lens of what might go wrong. They start interpreting it through the lens of what is true, eternal, and trustworthy. Their fears shrink because they no longer carry life on their own shoulders. Anxiety loosens its grip because their confidence is no longer in their own ability to control outcomes. Their life becomes less about fear management and more about faith alignment. Wisdom becomes their stabilizer. This is the ripple effect of intentional living, and it does not stop with the individual. When one person changes, their environment changes. A wise parent creates a wiser home. A wise leader cultivates a wiser team. A wise friend influences healthier conversations. A wise believer becomes a lighthouse in a culture of confusion. And this is one of the most overlooked truths about biblical wisdom. It is contagious. It spreads through communities, families, workplaces, and friendships. When you embody wisdom, you give others permission to do the same. They watch your steadiness, your clarity, your patience, your peace, and they begin to ask themselves, what would my life look like if I lived that way? Your example becomes a seed of transformation in someone else's journey. This is why living intentionally with these proverbs is not simply personal development, it is spiritual contribution. Your life becomes part of the story God is writing in the world. And as more people embrace wisdom, communities shift from reactive to reflective, from chaotic to grounded, from shallow to substantial. In a world obsessed with shortcuts, hacks, and surface-level solutions, choosing to live by timeless truths becomes a quiet act of courage. You are rejecting the noise and choosing the narrow path. You are refusing the temporary and choosing the eternal. You are stepping into a kind of life that doesn't crumble when pressure rises. And that brings us to the final invitation of this series. Let these proverbs become more than insights. Let them become your anchors. Begin your mornings with one. Reflect on it during your commute. Let it shape your tone when you speak, your perspective when you feel overwhelmed, your choices when you feel uncertain, and your habits when life feels rushed. Choose one proverb each week of 2026 and build a practice around it. By the end of the year, you will not simply have learned 25 proverbs, you will have lived them. And the difference between learning and living is the difference between inspiration and transformation. As you look ahead, do not rush past this moment. You now carry a set of tools, truths, and principles that have guided countless generations before you. These proverbs strengthened kings, comforted the weary, grounded leaders, and shaped entire cultures. And now they are in your hands. What you do with them from here will shape not just the year ahead, but the person you are becoming. And so, as you step forward, here is the final reminder. Wisdom is not a destination, but a direction. It is something you pursue daily, humbly, intentionally. There will be days you succeed and days you fall short, but every day is an opportunity to realign. The journey itself becomes part of the transformation. You do not need perfection to live wisely. You need persistence and a willing heart. If this message has encouraged you, stay connected. More wisdom, more scripture, more practical teaching awaits. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and continue walking this path of intentional living with us. Your journey does not end with this video. It begins here.